Good morning and welcome, everyone. Call this meeting order of the Lebanon County Board of Commissioners. Our tradition is to observe a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Please join me. Pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now it's time on the agenda to entertain public comment. Do we have any public comment this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes from the meeting of May 1st.
Make a motion or second it if you didn't.
I'll second it.
Motion second, approve those minutes as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and those minutes are approved. Before we get into the treasurer report, we did have an urgent request come in just recently from the Office of Public Defender, and we'll entertain a motion to add that item to our agenda.
Second.
To the second, questions? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Where we going?
Question.
9:50, so.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Okay.
When she's here.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Mrs. Newland, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He had receipts on 5/13 and 5/14, $666,369.71. That brought us to a total cash of $12,891,312.34. Our expenditures this week were $1,334,092.98. The tax claim is $47,930.04. The ES $11,509,289.32.
Second.
For the second, any questions or comments? None, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the treasury approved. Thank you. Michelle. Morning, Michelle.
Morning.
May introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Director of Human Resources, under Personnel Transaction Summary, Jerry Hart, Court Officer, Courts, termination effective May 5th. Michelle Stouts, Michael Stouts, telecommunicator, Department of Emergency Services, termination effective May 2nd. Donald Yordi, Communications Technician, Department of Emergency Services, retirement effective July 4th. Lauren Cordon, Admin Assistant 1 in Domestic Relations, resignation effective May 16th. Raquel Martinez, Caseworker 2 in MHIDEI, resignation effective May 23rd. Rachel Speck, Collections Officer in Probation Services, resignation effective June 30th. Robert Paul, Probation Officer 1 in Probation Services, resignation effective May 27th.
Make a motion to move the resignations and terminations with special recognition to Donald Jordy for his many, 06, 16, 26, almost 30 years of service.
I'll second the motion.
Noted. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved.
Under leaves of absence, Adrian Wetzel, Children and Youth, 4-week leave of absence effective May 5th.
Awesome.
I'll second.
Motion second. Any questions or comments on the leave?
Is this the one coming back? Is she getting paid when she's off?
No, that's a different one. That's
Okay.
not here yet.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That leave is granted.
Under changes of status transfers and promotions, Lucia Miranda transferring from Office Support 2/interpreter in Domestic Relations to Caseworker 1 in Children and Youth. at the rate of $1,597.60 biweekly effective May 26th. Jennifer Hartman, voluntary demotion from second deputy in the Pathonetary office to general clerk C in the Pathonetary office at the rate of $1,432.62 biweekly effective May 12th. Julie Mara Lara Barbera, promotion from general clerk C in Pathonetary office to second deputy in the Pathonetary office to the rate of $1,222.08 biweekly effective May 12th.
Make a motion to accept the changes of status, transfers, and promotions.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? None. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Those changes are approved.
Under other transactions, children and youth would like to rehire Holly Whitmer as a caseworker one at the rate of $1,597.60 biweekly effective June 9th. The Pathonetary's office would like to hire Cole Wenrick as a general clerk C at the rate of $1,138.30 biweekly effective May 12th. And President Judge Tilwalk would like to rehire Jamie DeShong Harris as an office support two at the rate of $1,200.69 biweekly effective May 19th.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Questions or comments? None. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, and those transactions are approved.
Moving on to salary board, motion to approve all transactions previously read, plus the following. Maritza Bell Perez, interpreter pay addition. She is currently an office support two in domestic relations, and that is an annual stipend of $1,500 prorated from the effective date of June 1st. And Jenna Kaufman, longevity payment, probation officer one, a one-time 3-year longevity payment of $1,279.04, effective May 30th.
So, second.
For the second, any questions or comments? None. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Salary board recommendations are approved. Anything else? You,
Thank you, Michelle.
Mr. Boogley. Oh, no, we do have one additional personnel matter.
Come on.
Good morning, Tina Litz, Warden at the Lebanon County Correctional Facility. With me, we have Ray Arnold, Director of Work Release, and his lovely wife. Today, the commissioners are presenting a proclamation to Ray Arnold for 32 years of dedication and service to the county, specifically at the Lebanon County Correctional Facility. Ray Arnold is a gentleman that did more than show up for work over the course of his tenure and career. He had his hands in just about anything he could to positively impact the correctional facility, and he worked hard to build relationships in the community to have employees to hire our incarcerated individuals. So as happy as I am for Ray's retirement and his hard work and dedication, for him to have a retirement, it's also going to be sad and a lot of work for the correctional facility to find a replacement that has the diligence, the history, and again, the dedication to service that Ray Arnold presented for the county, specifically at the Lebanon County Correctional Facility.
If I could, or Jamie, would you read the proclamation?
Sure. I'd like to.
What's that?
Unless you'd like to.
No, go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
all right. Whereas Ray Arnold Jr. began his career with the Lebanon County Correctional Facility, employed as a full-time correctional officer on August 30th, 1992. Whereas on September 15th, 1997, Ray was selected as the Assistant Work Release Director and was promoted to the Director of Work Release at the facility on August 24th, 2020. And whereas during his tenure, Ray served the county with devotion and commitment. He was a key member of the correctional team, performing his duties and responsibilities in a professional manner. He has been a valuable and dedicated employee. Whereas on May 28th, 2025, Ray will retire from the Lebanon County Correctional Facility with over 32 years of distinguished service. And now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners of Lebanon County, on behalf of past boards of county commissioners, past and present employees, and all our citizens, unite to thank Ray for the outstanding service he provided during his many years at the Lebanon County Correctional Facility. Further, extend our congratulations and best wishes for a most rewarding future and very best retirement.
I will move to approve.
And I will second, and then I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I've known Ray probably the whole time I've been here, and I've learned him to be a gentleman as he pulled your chair for you, but a gentle soul in a tough job. And I think he touched a lot of the people who went to the jail and maybe gave them a little hope that there was hope for them, that they could turn their lives around. And I'm sure you touched a lot of them. Thank you, Ray, for your service.
Echo the words of the proclamation and what Commissioner Litz said. Great career with us. We're grateful and we're happy for you with your future retirement years.
I'd like to add to, the Warden and Commissioner Litz referred to as a gentleman. That's what I've noticed. You conduct yourself as a gentleman, but also a real professional, and you leave huge shoes to fill. I only hope we can get somebody that's close to you in the way you conduct yourself and lead our program into prison.
And
God
that
bless
stay
you.
as long as he stayed.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I would just like to say I couldn't be the person I am today without Jesus in my life. And also, my wife, Shelley, she has been the backbone of my success because she's always there for me. And I came up under, 3 different wardens now. I remember Bob Rager was a great man, so was Bob Carnes, and Tina's a great lady. I can't say it like that.
Thank you.
Excuse me. She's an excellent warden, so.
Thank you.
Without their leadership, and I mean, with my shortcomings, sometimes everybody has them, but we have always come to common ground and work together on all things. So I'm very thankful for the career you've given me and the pension I'm gonna help endure my life for longer. So thank you again, all of you, by the way. It's good.
Bless you. He's still a gentleman. He said you had to come up under 3 wardens. You bet you, instead of saying you trained 3 different wardens.
They were all great. They all have their strengths. So each one of them.
You know, and I also would like to thank Shelley because working in a jail is difficult because you have your jail personality. Sometimes you have to be not harsh, but you have to be a little more stern with the population that you deal with. And then you have to balance that to go home and remember at home, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a grandfather. And Shelley has, I feel, been there to help Ray navigate and maneuver those times. So as much of 32 years and 9 months of service Ray Arnold provided to the county, Shelley also provided that by being a supportive wife and showing him the way as a partner. So thank you, Shelley.
Bless you both, and many happy, healthy years in your retirement.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from anyone? No, we'll entertain a need to vote to approve that proclamation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Proclamation is approved. If you like to get a photo,
Yes, can I get a photo of you guys? Right.
Go ahead.
What are you gonna say? Motion? All right. Shelley?
I'll come study. Great deserving.
1, 2, sorry, Shelley, you want to stop it? Sure. One, two, three. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for letting us have them. Enjoy your time.
Sorry, thank you.
Appreciate it. Oh, I know. Harder. It was always, you felt safe and secure with him there, and he was never harsh with anything. Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple more years, I know.
Yeah, good. His openings, he said.
Oh, okay. Okay, good to know.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, how do you follow that?
I know.
Another class back.
Oh, man.
Oh, thank you.
Introduce yourself for the record and
Yes.
you may proceed.
Good morning. I'm Eagley, Lebanon County Solicitor. I have one item for consideration by the board this morning. This is a lease early termination agreement. The party to the agreement is Advanced Treatment Systems, but it is, that's their corporate name. It's Acadia Healthcare. They had the methadone clinic out on 3030 Chestnut Street near the sewage treatment center. And they reached out to us some time ago inquiring about terminating the lease early. And so there were several rounds of negotiation. We had good discussions with Mr. Dean Lee on behalf of Acadia Healthcare, and they are agreeable to paying the full balance remaining in the lease agreement until the current lease is set to expire November 30th of 2026. So we calculated the remaining lease payments. The one item I do want to note, the agreement in your packet reflects the total amount without payment for May. I did confirm with Jim Donmoyer that they did submit payment for May. So I have an updated copy of the agreement. So the new amount that we will be agreeing to is $127,765.44. The agreement in your packet too had a date of April 30th as determination. That was when we were negotiating back in April. So the new date, it will terminate on May 31st of 2025. So the county will be getting full payment for the rent from Acadia Healthcare relative to that portion of the building that we were set to get through November of 2026.
If I could just add to that, the proceeds of that go into the Drug and Alcohol Commission's program. So it's not a general fund receipt, it goes to the agency, which just as the rent did.
Is there a lead on another tenant, or are we not allowed to lease it before it ends?
Well, I think Mr. Donmoyer has begun discussions and just trying to see about a prospective new tenant, and I believe he is hopeful to try and get somebody in. We don't have any particular party identified at this point, but I think at this point we're going to begin, now that the termination has happened, we're going to begin seeking prospective new tenants.
Okay,
And Acadia still resides on the property.
Correct.
They're still leasing another portion of it that's not affected by this.
there's like 4 housing or buildings there, I guess.
Yeah, so this is relative to the methadone clinic. There's
Yes.
also the White Deer Run Treatment Facility, which is on the other side of that's a separate lease
Okay.
with Acadia Healthcare.
And I'll make a motion to approve the request for the early termination.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any questions, comments? None. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The same sign. It is approved. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Anything additional?
Nope, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring Megan is now, and then I'll finish them before we go to the Steve stuff.
Morning.
Good morning. Would you please introduce yourself for the record and you may proceed.
So,
Okay, so, I'm Megan Tidwell, I'm the Chief Public Defender, and I'm here to talk to you about an extended grant opportunity. So the Indigent Defense Fund had originally run through December 31st of 2025, and the original amount was a little over $95,000. So we have learned that that is going to be extended another year, so that would extend it to December 31st of 2026, and they're allocating an additional $99,066 to Lebanon County. This would allow, and what I'm asking the commissioners to sign off on would be to extend our social services advocate position that we have implemented since January of 2025
for another year. Right now she's part-time and we would like to keep that position part-time. And allocate, I guess, 3% more to her salary for the 2026 year. So that brings us to $31,213.12. We would like to retain our part-time mental health attorney for another year. That's Attorney Boris Airgood. We would set aside $51,578.28. And for a retention bonus for our fourth secretary, $3,610 is the same amount that I had allocated for the other three secretaries who had become eligible for that retention bonus during this current term of the grant. I have talked to the union about the retention bonus issue. They have approved those three secretaries for a retention bonus, and so I'm asking for the fourth one to also receive a retention bonus. And lastly, the only new thing that I didn't ask last term would be for a subscription for Westlaw Precision with co-counsel. This would be an AI-assisted legal research tool. We already currently use Westlaw, so this AI assistant is integrated into the program that we already use. If you're familiar with AI, ChatGPT has been a big thing. This service is like ChatGPT, except it uses the database that we already use. So kind of how a paralegal would be able to do preliminary research for us, this AI tool would give us the ability to do that without hiring another person. So that would be 6 to 7 subscriptions for six to seven attorneys. That would be $12,664.60. If we do need a seventh subscription, I would be asking to use my office supply line item for the additional around $2,500 for that last subscription.
May I ask, is this for next year? So you mentioned September of 26.
So,
Okay, so that's not this year, it's all next year.
correct, I'd be
Okay.
looking for January 1st.
So it'll be in your next budget then.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, the prior grant's already in 2025 budget.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion and second to approve this request. Any questions or comments?
I know that across the state, a lot of your peers are doing similar things for this grant. Everyone kind of gets their heads together and says this is where it's headed. Are they using this add-on to Westlaw, do you find?
So a survey went out to get a feel for how the counties have been using AI and what they use it for. I've heard good things about the Lexis version of this tool. They find it really helpful because certain versions, we're starting with the beginner version, but the one above this can actually draft briefs for you. And I've heard that it's accurate and it's a very good start to doing that. So I think we're headed in that direction, and this would be a good getting our toes wet option.
Additional questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, and you have that approval.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. A lot of work on that. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, the bottom.
Before we get to retirement board, I have two items. The first being the disabled veteran exemptions for those eligible for the exemption criteria. For exemption from real estate, they are Matthew Plitch of Aspen Lane, Lebanon, Antonio Cruz of Christine Drive, Lebanon, Robert Trunk of Cambridge Court, Palmyra, Brittany Kreiser of King Street, Anvil, and Mark Good of Harvest Drive, Lebanon.
Move to approve the submitted exemption request for veterans for real estate tax exemption.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, any questions or comments? None, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, and those requests are granted.
Okay, next I have recommendations for reappointment to the Lebanon County Commission on Drug and Alcohol Abuse Advisory Council. Again, these would all be reappointments. They are Michael Fry, PhD in the education category, James D. Strife or JD Strife. In the optional category, Michael Wyrick in optional, William White in optional, and Jennifer Easter in healthcare professional category. All, if appointed, would be expiring in February of 2028.
Second?
Motion and second. Questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So reappointments are granted.
So we'll transition over here to a retirement board and reconfigure our screen a little bit. We do have two individuals joining us by Zoom, so bring them on. There they come.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you can see Mike and Brett on the screen on your end. And then we can see you as well. Morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mike, if you'd like to take the lead and introduce yourselves for the record and may proceed when you're ready.
Mike Battistelli and Brett Holland with Stephen Nicholas. We're here to present the first quarter results of the pension board or the pension plan for the retirees. And we do have with us two guests on out there in TV land from Madison Investments, or two strategies that we have in the portfolio. So Brett and I will go over, if it's all right, we'll go over the first quarter. I'll give a year-to-date number, update, a few comments, and then we'll turn it over to Madison.
Two gentlemen from Madison are Matt Gozinger. He's responsible for the senior analyst with the equity portion with what we call mid-cap or medium-sized company. And then Doug Fry is a portfolio manager on the fixed income side. Like Mike said, they have two different pieces that they manage for us. So if you would take your booklet like we do there, the report on page 4 of 11, and the page that we usually refer to, and this is just the first quarter of the year, obviously. In the top left, it says from basically December or January 1st through March 31st. And as Mike mentioned, we'll have updated numbers after that. But if on the top left-hand side there, if you go to the year-to-date numbers, which is the same as the current period, the pension fund started out with $138,725,294. And then in the way of cash flow with distributions, there was 2.7 million that was taken out in distributions. Then we had a decline of a little over 600,000 during that time frame. And then the pension fund ended up at $135,363,914 at the end of that period. So we had a negative return, if you will, of that during that time frame of about 0.51%. So we were down about 0.5%. During that time, and Mike will share a little bit more about this, and I'm sure Doug and Matt can jump in too. But during that time frame, that was kind of when the markets, we had a bump at the beginning of the year, then things started selling off. And at the time, the equity markets around that time were down around 5 or 10%, which we don't have all equities for you folks. But at that time, it was a little bit more pessimistic with what was going on. The bottom right-hand corner is just the overall allocation, a cash balance of about 1% that's in there, or cash, what we call cash equivalents. Kind of moving clockwise, the equities or the stock portion is 65%. Fixed income is 28%, and then the REIT portfolio or alternative investments is 6%. And Madison, just to kind of give some perspective as they speak here in a few minutes, they represent about 7.3% or about $9.8 million of the overall pension. So they have a pretty substantial piece of the pension. Any questions on any of this at all? I'll ask you if you don't mind going to page 6. And so page 6 gives a little more perspective, if you will. And it has over towards the right half of the page at the top, you see 1, 3, 5, and 10 year. And if you just kind of drop to the bottom of each of those columns, that 1 year number is 4.48% over the last 12 months. And so that would be April 1st, help me out, April 1st of last year, through 24 through the end of March of this year. The next column over that 3-year number of 4.49%, the 5-year number of 9.85%, and that's per year. Those are averages is what those are. And then that right number, the 10-year number of 6.23% over the last 10 years. With that, and Mike has, again, up to date as of just a day or so ago.
So since the quarter end, there's been a lot of news since the end of the quarter. Tariffs have definitely been in the news, inflation, a possible recession. Some of the tariffs, as I think most of us know, if you're kind of following it, it started being negotiated. I can't say anything's been finalized, but there's becoming some more clarity, and I think that creates a little more calmness in the market. So far, this quarter, I'm going to give you a year-to-date number, but it's gotten a little bit better. So we are positive 1.37% year-to-date, January through yesterday. And the plan stands at $136,614,498. Again, we don't usually look at indexes specifically because it's hard to line up a benchmark, if you will, an exact benchmark. But at the same time period, the S&P is down 0.64, the Dow Jones is down 0.32, NASDAQ is down 3.12%. So on a relative basis, the pension plan is performing the way we would expect it in a challenging market, and that we're built and put together kind of a little bit defensive, and it's kind of holding up. This is the time that kind of we show that. Any questions on those updated numbers? And then one other comment here, right now we have about 1% in cash, as Brett had mentioned. One of the questions about this time of the year is just inquiring about your annual contribution. Kind of knowing when that might be coming might help us to determine whether we need to raise some cash or, plan on that cash coming in. Is there any thought to that?
Controller said that we should have a number from our actuary, I think, in the next week.
Next week, we should have those numbers.
If we have that, then Sally has the funds set aside. So if we have that, then we can pay that rather than you liquidating anything. If we don't have that and it becomes urgent, then we can do an estimate and, but if you're okay for weeks, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without liquidating.
Yeah, we're good till mid-June at least.
Okay.
Stupid question. In this volatility period, is 1% cash enough? You feel? Should you have?
We were just talking about that. Brett and I were just talking about that we've had a little run up here, and depending on whose outlook you're looking at, there's still concerns about the market. Could we go into a recession? First quarter GDP was negative. If we get a second negative quarter in the second quarter, that would be a technical recession. So things could slow down. So we have actually been talking about maybe even raising some additional cash while we're at a higher point right now. Likely we'll do that.
So with that, Matt and Doug, I don't know if you guys did a coin toss to see who goes first, but if not, Matt, if you just want to start us off just for purposes, I guess, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Great. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Thanks for everyone's time this morning. So as the introduction, my name is Matthew Getzinger. I help manage the mid-cap strategy here at Madison. And I can go through kind of first quarter numbers, where we are through kind of mid-May, speak a little bit about tariffs, and then how we're kind of positioned right now and finding opportunities. But I think maybe before kind of getting into the details, I think it's kind of helpful maybe just to take a step back and just reappraise everyone in the room in terms of how we think about managing an equity portfolio, just to level set everyone. So first and foremost, we really think about our investment process and trying to identify absolutely strong, durable business models. We like to call these businesses kind of all-weather vehicles. So businesses that can perform well regardless of the economic environment. And then if you think about just kind of the mental image of kind of a king's castle, and the castle represents the really underlying profitability in the business, what we demand when we're looking for new businesses, we demand that that castle has a substantial moat around that castle, and that moat protects the profitability within that business and within that castle. And so you can imagine that, you know, a nicely profitable business always attracts competition. And so we're always trying to suss out and understand what makes this particular company have a really strong and durable moat. And I think as we appraise businesses, we try to understand those moat characteristics and think of the businesses as business owners. And what we're really trying to do is we say internally, we look down before we look up. So we're trying to understand the risk parameters of the business. We want our companies to be very well financed, not have leveraged balance sheets. And I think ultimately, as was discussed a little bit in the introduction, that's led to a portfolio that's very resilient in a lot of different environments. So in markets where there was a lot of uncertainty in the first quarter, those are environments that we generally protect capital pretty well. What we did see in the first quarter, there was a little bit of a rotation to what I would call more traditionally defensive areas. So some real estate, utilities, energy. Generally speaking, these aren't areas that we find really great businesses in. So we're a little bit underweight those areas, although the offsetting kind of portfolio construction process, we're heavily involved in kind of insurance. And so those are kind of our ballast in our portfolio. So insurance brokers, specialty P&C companies. So in the first quarter specifically, the portfolio was down 3.9%. That was about 0.5% worse than our benchmark. There was kind of less discrimination across equities in the first quarter as people were really kind of reacting to the tariffs. I would say through mid-May, we've recouped that and more. The portfolio is up, call it 1.5%. That's about 0.5% better than our benchmark, the Russell Midcap Index. And we've had a little bit of activity in the portfolio in the first quarter. We did sell one name and we added two names. We sold a long-term holding in Armstrong Worldwide, which is a manufacturer, the leading manufacturer of ceiling tiles. It looks like you may have some Armstrong product above you in your room. We became involved in this business kind of immediately post-COVID when people were really of the opinion that people weren't going to go back to offices, and that kind of languished and impacted the outlook for a business like Armstrong. We felt that the moat was really strong and a leader in that industry, and it's come back nicely. But ultimately, we decided to sell that position and reallocate towards some names that we've been following for quite a long time that we think have better longer-term business prospects. The two companies we added, one was Trex, which makes composite decking, and the other business is Kinsale, and Kinsale is a specialty P&C company, primary property and casualty business that's run by the founder. We think Trex has a really interesting opportunity. Obviously, it's in the building products area, and there's been a lot of uncertainty with regards to the trajectory of housing. Trex is a really interesting business in that it's mostly a repair and remodel business. So they do composite decks. Composite decks are maybe 20% of the total market today. And over time, they've continued to take share from traditional wood decks. They're a little bit more expensive on the front end, but if you think of your own home and your outdoor patio, you know, you don't have to go through the exercise of sanding and restaining. These are decks that last 15 years plus and come with nice warranties. So the total cost of ownership, if you will, for the consumer is much better than a traditional wood deck. So we think they have a a nice long-term growth runway. They're the leader in this business with 3 times the market share as their next largest competitor. And the other business we added, as I mentioned, Kinsale. This is a business that has also been taking a lot of market share. They have I would say, a cleaner go-to-market strategy. They don't have kind of legacy technology issues that they're trying to correct. And so we think this is a business run by the founder, and very well capitalized and very intelligently run. And so it came on our valuation parameters, and we started a initial position. Otherwise, the topic really that I think maybe is in a lot of people's minds is just the tariff exposure. And so just to take a step back there, really around the November election, we began an exercise of just kind of framing what the potential impact for different potential policy agendas could be for who ended up in the White House. And what we found, although there's some uncertainty still ongoing in the market, really about 55 to 65% of our company is what we would call capital light businesses. So these are service businesses or kind of technology network businesses. So think of Brown and Brown as an insurance broker, Gartner as a research technology provider. So they don't necessarily manufacture any goods. So again, almost 2/3 of the portfolio doesn't really have any exposure to tariffs. Another 20% is actually a manufacturing of goods. So I mentioned one, Trex. They actually have a US supply chain. And a lot of the companies in this bucket, I would say they're moderately exposed to tariffs, although they've also been informed by what I would call Trump's first presidential occupancy of the White House. And so during that time, a lot of these companies reorchestrated their supply chains to kind of build resiliency into their business models. So we feel pretty comfortable with those businesses. And then lastly, about 10% of the portfolio we think is more exposed to potential tariffs. The one main company in this area is a business called Floor and Decor. They're the largest provider of flooring solutions. They have a unique competitive advantage relative to smaller mom and pop operators, but they do have some imports from Southeast Asia that they're navigating. Some of that will likely be passed along through higher consumer prices. But still sticking with that company, we think the valuation, more than discounts kind of the near-term potential risk around tariffs sticking at this point. So I've gone through a lot already. I do want to leave a chance if there's any questions from the audience on things that I discussed or anything else on anyone's mind this morning.
I don't think so.
Thanks, Matt. That's fine. Appreciate that. Doug, if you want to chime in there and share a little bit about the fixed income portfolio, please.
Sure. And forgive my background. I'm on the road, so you see my beautiful hotel room that I'm staying in. And Mike, yes, we did have a coin flip, and it was supposed to go the other way. And usually that's because when you get teamed up with an equity and fixed income presentation, I like to say it's like a really good guitar solo. You start quiet, a little boring, and you end with a roaring solo, roaring, runs. So you usually start with the boring fixed income guy, and then you go to the rock star equity analyst. So you kind of ruin that. We're gonna finish with fixed income, but interestingly, fixed income has been kind of fun for the past year and a half, which it hadn't been for most of the past 15 years. And that shows up in your performance. You joined us at a time when the Fed was literally pivoting from 15 years of ultra low interest rates with their ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, and quantitative easing, to having helped ignite the worst inflation we've experienced in multiple generations, and had to quickly pivot. And it was a painful 22 and early 23 for investors, yourselves included. But in our opinion, that was a and when we spoke, I think this is our second meeting together. When we spoke at that time, it's like we had to go through that transition, because if you didn't go through that transition, especially as a pension plan with long-term liabilities, you couldn't sit in an environment where a high quality fixed income portfolio only yielded 1 or 1.5%. So the good news is we've made it through that transition. The bad news is there was a little pain to get there. But you've really seen that performance turn around. So if you look at performance, through the first quarter, it was up about 2.4%. I ran the numbers through last week. We're up a little over 3. But I think more impressively, if you think about it in terms of the cycle that we've gone through since rates peaked in late 2023, your portfolio is up 11.5%. And that's just because, the Fed took us to heights, and perhaps the market overreacted, and we've seen rates start to normalize since then. So encouraging performance over the past 18 or so months within your portfolio. The current portfolio positioning is quite conservative. Our index and our strategy is conservative to begin with. We tend to be more conservative than the index in that we concentrate primarily on single A or rated bonds within your portfolio. Or if you look at our index, you can own triple Bs. And we don't say we'll never own triple Bs in the portfolio, but right now, the reward for taking excess risk by moving away from a treasury into what we call the spread sectors. When we say a spread sector, what is that? That's corporate bonds, mortgage backs, asset backs. These are securities that you say, I could just buy a treasury. I could buy a 5-year treasury, or I could buy a 5-year corporate bond. But if you're going to move away from the most liquid security on the face of the earth into something perhaps riskier and less liquid, you need to earn a spread. And the way we look at relative value in the fixed income market is how wide is that spread? If it's wide, you're getting paid for taking risk. Now you have to be careful, because the reason you're being paid for taking that risk is the market is starting to say there's a chance that some of these companies aren't going to pay us back. But as spreads get tighter and tighter and tighter, the reward for taking that risk becomes relatively minimal. And right now we're pretty close to as tight as spreads have ever been. So in our position, it's time to be conservative with your portfolio. So right now, the asset allocation is about 60, we call it 60%, just over 60% in treasuries, and 40% in corporate bonds. And remember, we're primarily single A rated or better, or if you look at that benchmark, it's 50% triple Bs. I mean, companies love leverage today. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I started in this business, the majority of companies were very proud to carry a double A or a triple A rating. Now they don't care. They want to reward, Matt's clients and customers and investments by being shareholder friendly, and they tend to be a little less protective of their debt holders. So again, very conservatively positioned. If you compare that to the index, our 40% position is about a 10% overweight. And again, when you pair the fact we're slightly overweight to corporates, but they're higher quality than the index, we think that we're pretty conservatively positioned. Now, we did take advantage of some spread widening as the Trump, tariff volatility came into the market. So we did add a couple of corporate bonds into the portfolio in the first quarter. We added a Cisco Systems, and we added Chubb, the insurance company. So we took advantage of some wider spreads in that area, but still pretty conservatively positioned, because, the spreads are still here. If spreads get out to here, we'd love to have, 50, 60, 70% of the portfolio in high quality corporate bonds, and even perhaps mortgage-backed securities. Lastly, the outlook. We're cautiously optimistic. Obviously, events from just last week and over the weekend with paring back of some of the most egregious Trump tariffs has added a little bit of confidence that the future may be a little more normal, and we've seen a little bit of volatility leak out of the marketplace. We actually like where yields are today. We like the fact that the yield curve is what we call normally sloped. For quite a bit of 22 and 23, interest rates were inverted, where short rates were much higher than long rates. That's usually the market telling you that they expect a recession or an economic slowdown. The fact that the curve is normally shaped is positive. It's positive from an investment standpoint, because in the past, you were tempted to just sit in cash because cash was yielding more than a 10-year bond. Well, the market's back to a much more normal. You're being rewarded for taking a little bit of interest rate risk for adding some longer maturity bonds into your portfolio. But with the short rates at 2.5, 3, 4, percent, really short rates even higher than that, you're still being rewarded on the front end of the yield curve. So we're really excited about where the market is. In terms of our outlook, we think the 10-year treasury, which is kind of our benchmark in our portfolio, we think the 10-year right here at 4.5% is fair value. When it got under 4%, a few months ago, we thought that the market was completely overreacting. And there was very little value in buying 10-year bonds at that level. If it gets up to 4.75 or 5%, again, we think the market is probably overreacting a little bit. We think that's a buying opportunity. Right here at 4.5%, it's perfect. An economy that's growing at 2%, inflation at 2 to 2.5%. I add those together. That tells me that 10 years right around fair value. We do think the Fed is probably going to continue to lower interest rates, and what will end up happening eventually is those money market and short-term rates are going to start catching up with the 2-year treasury, with the 2 years yielding 4%, and it's probably going to be going quite a bit lower than that over the next 12 to 18 months. But that's good for investors. This yield curve, this spread environment is actually rewarding you. The yield in your portfolio right now is solidly above 4%. I think we're at a 4.35. We're keeping the portfolio essentially what we call duration neutral, or a maturity very similar to the benchmark. If you think about when we first started with you, we were holding the average maturity of the portfolio short of the benchmark for fear that the Fed was going to raise interest rates. When rates peaked in 2023, we took your portfolio a little bit long versus the benchmark because that looked like pretty good value. We should take advantage of some of those higher rates. Well, right now, again, as I mentioned, we think rates are at kind of a fair level. Well, when things are fair, they're not cheap, they're not expensive. We're keeping your portfolio pretty neutral versus the benchmark. So that's kind of where we're at. Much better environment than when we first started together a couple of years ago. Pretty excited about the outlook for the portfolio. And like Matt, I'll just ask if there's any questions.
Anyone?
Take a question.
No, thank you, Doug.
Great, thank you.
All right, well,
Oh, and by
thanks.
the way,
Matt.
can I just finish with this?
Yeah, jump in.
Mad respect for Ray. I don't know if he's still in the room. My daughter's a social worker, and she worked in a conditionally released program for a couple of years in Dane County, Madison. And what they do for their folks and how much they care for those folks to try and transition them back into something resembling a normal life. I have a lot of respect for him and what he did. So it was great for you to reward him and recognize his service.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Doug and Matt. With that, any other questions for us at all? At this point in time?
Remind Doug, check out anybody.
Check out the letter. That's right. Good point. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Guys.
you for your time.
gentlemen.
Yep, bye.
Thank you all.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Stay dry. There- Anything else for the good of the order?
I just have, Tuesday, we celebrated Police Week, which is this entire week, recognizing our fallen policemen, but also all first responders, which should be on our minds every day, but especially this week, just to have everybody in sync with that. And tonight we have a celebration for United Way of Lebanon County. So I would just like to unofficially ask you to consider today Lebanon Day, United Way Day in Lebanon County. Unofficial, no vote or anything, but just keep it in your minds. We have a successful campaign.
I think we have to take any action. United Way does a great job of helping many people in our community for many years, every day. So, but so noted. Congratulations to everyone involved.
I think our staff deserves kudos too in the election office, even though it's not as big as last year. They're getting the job done and they're ready for Tuesday. They're buying the food right now.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Pam Tracamo, Lebanon City, quick commercial, Saturdays, the 36th Annual Union Canal Days, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Vendors, food trucks, entertainment, and narrated tours through the oldest transportation tunnel in the country. And yes, we go, rain or shine, and it's supposed to rain again. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. Anything else for the good of the order? Not will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Something.
Second.
And before we take a vote on that to adjourn, we'll note that we need to meet following this meeting in executive session to discuss human resource issues and union negotiations. Stand adjourned.